Alright, it's the good Ox 9 Spiral. Fair use. YouTube fair use. This is for educational purposes only. I am exercising my First Amendment right as free press. Fair use. YouTube, fair use.
I was able to find this footage from Chicago from the 1893 World's Fair, and the quality is not the best, but it's the best I could find as of now. If I find a better copy, then maybe I'll redo this video. But basically what we're looking at here is a canal tour via a gondola kind of ride through the canals of the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago. Now the interesting thing about the Chicago World's Fair is it was the biggest one, and because of that it stayed, it ran the longest. It ran longer than the San Francisco or even the Buffalo one. And, like I said, the quality's not the best, but we can see a few things here. It's just kind of an interesting kind of piece of film, to appreciate. I'll put the link in the description to the original source. And, it's just, I just kind of take a nice little relaxing trip down an 1893 canal. And like I said before, about these World's Fairs, there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people say that these are built out of paper mache and, chicken wire and plywood. I don't think so. Maybe that's a little bit of plausible deniability there somewhere. But just look at this here. This is the grand, I think this is the main entryway that they're going under here in a second. And it's a darn shame that it's not better quality, but you can kind of get an idea of how grandiose this was. But as I was saying, I just don't see that theory holding up. That this was all plywood and plaster and chicken wire. And then the other thing that intrigues me is they talk about how many people came, and I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that there was a lot of people there. The photographs show that, and it actually lines up with the inheritor theory and with the Mudflood theory that they had to bring in people.
He said they had to bring in people, right?
And it actually lines up with the inheritor theory and with the Mudflood theory that they had to bring in people. I just don't see people spending the money at the time in the official narrative.
All right, so let's walk the doggy. Right? Let's cook. Okay, so he said they had to bring in people, right? Now, we keep screaming repopulation, reset, repopulation, reset, repopulation. And it's easy to see what was going on at these world fairs and why they was called expositions. But we're going to dig a little deeper. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Mr. John Levi, one of the best.
Now this is called the Marlborough in New Jersey, and they tore this building down.
Say what?
They tore it down even though...
Who would tear something like this down, huh? None other than the heathen.
It's one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in America. They tore it down. But getting back to my point, when we look at a scene like this, and we look at a building like I just showed,
talk to me.
And then we see tents, and the people there don't really seem to be very accustomed to going to the beach.
Come on.
Tents, not really bathing suits, not really beach clothing. You know, people are making do with what they have.
Come on.
Post-reset, it appears as if everybody's been given, you know, very similar clothing. And actually very nice clothing. Suits, umbrellas. You know, there seems to be this reset issue. And we see this. People dressed better. People seem to live better. People seem to be more leisure, have more time on their hands. Nobody seems stressed. But what I want you to notice is that nobody has a beach towel. Nobody has a beach towel.
Come on.
This is very awkward. People just sitting in the sand. Really, like it's the first time they all went to the beach. And really leisure. Everybody just leisure as could be.
Some nigga need an iron. Don't mind me.
There isn't a stress or a care that I've seen in most of these pictures. I think by 1940 we start to see more, but in the early 1900s, very little stress. Everybody looked at the beach. And really leisure. Everybody just leisure as could be.
Now it's easy to see. Them look like top dogs. What they call controllers, whatnot.
There isn't a stress or a care that I've seen in most of these pictures. I think by 1940 we start to see more, but in the early 1900s,
And they like he hot as hell.
very little stress. Everybody looks healthy, dressed well. It's just a big party.
Yeah, them cream of the crop right there.
No boats, just leisure. Just leisure boats, no business. No massive ships. No goods coming or going. Now again, I want you to notice. No beach towel, not even a thought of a beach.
Some of these people look like they don't know what the hell going on. Almost as if they were told to, I don't know, play in the sand or something like that. I mean, who would do this? No female would do that. And don't tell me back then it was the old times. No, look at the damn buildings. They wasn't rocking like this here, just sitting in the sand. No. They had buildings like that. They had beach towels, swimsuits, beach chairs, cabanas. So this is not normal.
Beach towel. First time going to the beach. You know, enjoying themselves, but also out of place. Out of place. But yet really nice things. I mean, look at these umbrellas. Were these umbrellas inherited? I mean, they didn't have towels. Nobody had a beach towel. Not even a thought. The clothes doesn't necessarily fit people, but it's nice. Nobody seems to be without.
She said, but it's nice though. Alright, we're gonna bring in Miss Shelley. She does great work from There's No Place Like Home on YouTube. Check her out. Let's go.
Hi Hi everyone, I'm Shelley and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. It's time for another installment of my Question the Narrative series, and I'm going to go back today to the Chicago World's Fair because last time we went over the architecture of the World's Fairs and just the question of how could it possibly have been done with their technology and the fact they only have had horses and buggies, and you know they seem to construct a lot of these fairs after really strange times. Like, for example, here's just one view of the Chicago World's Fair, and it was supposedly all built within 2 years of time, 800 acres of land, and it was built about 20 years after the entire city of Chicago was decimated by a fire. And then if you actually look at the San Francisco World's Fair too, it's just as odd, because the San Francisco World's Fair, I believe, was built about 9 years after the San Francisco earthquake, and then there was also a fire. So it was built about 20 years after the entire city of Chicago was decimated by a fire. And then if you actually look at the San Francisco World's Fair too, it's just as odd, because the San Francisco World's Fair, I believe, was built about 9 years after the San Francisco earthquake, and then there was also a fire.
Now, if you're not familiar with my work on the Dracon, we've been digging on the Dracon at Drop Nation for a long time now. And it's almost to the point where I remember when this video came out and just a great vast elation went out to us, because the Most High was confirming what wisdom has taught us, that indeed these are angels of destruction. Now, we're digging on all these fires in the 1800s, right? I did a video on it. My guy, Howdy, said, you name a city, it happened. And there's thousands of these pictures on the internet. Who can we critic these fires to?
First of all, how does every city have a fire like that? You would think after a certain number of fires have broken out in cities all over the country, the other cities would start to think, hey, the likelihood of it happening here is pretty high. We should begin making plans to deal with it. Cities seem to never make plans to deal with it. Secondly, when I'm going to start showing you the photographic evidence that we have of these cities,
all right,
they do not look like standard fire damage. When I'm going to show you the photos, and we'll just show them to you. I'm just showing you a few randomly as I'm talking here, just to whet your appetite. But when I show them to you a little bit later, photo after photo after photo, you're going to begin to see that they all have the same look to them, and the look of just fire does not handle the story. And one of the things that comes in the stories, of course, is that the cities are built of wood. They're all wooden buildings, and that's why they were so easy to burn. But when you look at like this example of Chicago back in the 1950s, from what was the panorama that I'm showing it to you from? All right. The Hessler, right? The Hessler panorama of 1858.
Go ahead.
these look like solid brick stone buildings.
Hey.
These are the buildings that are burning down and that you're seeing pulverized.
I concur.
When you look at the photos, you don't see a lot of wood around. What you see is a lot of brick and stone virtually melted, and in many cases just sheared and hacked, like almost like a knife has gone through them.
My man Howdy said sheared, hacked, almost like a knife had went through, right? You see at Drop Nation, we're able to prevent visuals.
Cases just sheared and hacked, like almost like a knife has gone through them. And even when you look at Civil War photographs, the cities look the same, even though they're claimed to have not been destroyed by fire. They're claimed to have been destroyed either purposely or in some sort of bombardment in the Civil War. And even when
General Sherman, you didn't burn shit.
you look at the Civil War photographs, like the ones that are coming up on your screen here, do you really think that the supposed cannon material and weapon material of the Civil War could really do that kind of damage? Like, how long would one of those cannons or 10 of those cannons have to stand at a building and reload and constantly put the balls in to take down building after building after building?
Come on.
How much would you need?
No, I feel you.
So I'm just going to read a couple of things from my book about the fires and leave you with then. Actually, let's start with some photographs. That's a good idea. Let's start with more photographs first.
I was gonna ask.
I'm just leaning in because I'm clicking on my computer.
No, you good.
But so here's Baltimore, 1904. And again, what's interesting, notice how the telephone poles are fine.
Wow.
The fire has burned the buildings, has burned everything around them, but the telephone poles, or whatever these telegraph wires are, they're fine. Here, this is Toronto in 1904.
Wow.
The city's pulverized.
It is.
That was San Francisco. Here again, that's I think Baltimore again.
Wow.
This one that's also Baltimore. Here's a photo of San Francisco. This is Galveston, Texas. Right. So this is Galveston in 1885. And again, it's amazing to see that literally the brick and the stone have been melted almost to the point of complete pulverization, and the trees in the background are fine.
I see that.
Trees in the background are fine. We're looking here at New York's. This is probably Chicago.
Well,
we're looking here at 1849. This is St. Louis. Here's some screenshots I just made of the Chicago fire along the way. This one is, I think there's one of Boston in here. Yeah, the Great Fire of Boston. I mean, this looks like Dresden in Germany. And I know I know what you're going to say. There's a firestorm and it was created, but the firestorm wasn't just a couple of guys lit some matches to some gasoline cans. I mean, there was thousands of tons of incendiary bombs put on the city in order to create that particular fire in Dresden. But this looks like Dresden, right? This looks like Dresden in 1945.
Check that.
And there's another one. There's that one in Chicago I showed you before. So we have to really ask what went on in these fires.
I think I know.
And I just want to, so I'm just going to read a couple things from the book to help you, because I'm doing this as a very short presentation. I mean, this to really do this justice, this should be 2 or 3 hours long, and should include mass detail. And I'm kind of hoping, I'm doing this video with the hope that other researchers out there will be really interested in this material, will go start looking, because there's thousands of photos on the internet of these cities, to look at the photos in more detail. Maybe people who have some experience with fire and insurance and what buildings should look like and how buildings get destroyed, and can come and share information, or actually more importantly, actually go take this, what I'm doing, and take it deeper. Go more deeply into what might be happening here, because I think it's extremely important.
All right.
So I'm talking about the Chicago fire, which happened on October 8, 1871. Again, always claimed to have begun by a wayward cow knocking over a candle, right?
Yep.
Most of these fires have really goofy stories as to how they started. The first thing to realize is that this fire was not in isolation. There were 4 giant fires that day all along Lake Michigan. In Prestigo, Wisconsin, where 2,500 people died, Holland, Michigan, and Manistee, Michigan. 4 great fires on the same day in the same general location is too coincidental. Ignatius Donnelly, author and scientist, suggested in the 1880s that the fires must have been caused by a meteor strike.
There you go.
In 2004, physicist Robert Wood named it Bella's Comet specifically.
There you go.
The story that a running cow could have started this blaze in Chicago is a nice story for kids to believe, like the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, so as to not have to do any real thinking about it. Yet anyone close to Chicago at the time would have seen through the cow story right away, especially with 3 other serious fires close by at the same time. During the Prestigo fire, a local priest was quoted as suggesting that things came from the sky causing the fires, which could be meteors, but it could mean many things. All he said was things coming from the sky. Because what is for sure, when looking at the photos of above, we're not seeing fires. And the same becomes true when we look at the photos of the other city fires, and even when we look in artwork of the 15 and 1600s that depict balls of light falling into burning cities.
There you go. Balls
that could even, I was halfway through the research that on that great stolenhistory.org site, which is now gone, the site creator, Corbin Dallas, KD, as we know, did a great thread called Urban Fire Verdict, Global Attack on Our Civilization or Incompetency. And I'll leave the link below. That some of that thread still exists on that Wayback Machine. It's too bad the whole thing and a lot of the photographs are gone now. But he started that thread with this very clear comment. This could possibly be the biggest cover-up in the history of mankind. At the same time, it could be a case of the most mind-boggling stupidity. And so how does every city in, we'll say for sure the United States, but Europe and all the other, they happened in Australia, they happened in New Zealand, they happened everywhere. But we'll just take North America for now, for the sake of this discussion. And first of all, how does every city have a fire that?
I got you. All right, we're in the 1828 Noah Webster Dictionary. Definition of a dragon. Prester. A meteor thrown from the clouds with such violence that by collision with what? The ether, it is set on fire. You see, they ran up on this information. 1828, look at the date. This information was already here. They just push it to the back And it was waiting on us. Daniel 12, many shall run to and fro, knowledge will increase.
Official narrative saying that they were able to spend the money that, we were a depressed country at the time. Not everybody had money to travel and to dress nice, and, travel was slow and arduous at the time. So really what I think it is they had the people shipped in. Okay, and they say there were some famous people there, and I'm sure there were some famous people there, and that was kind of part of the cover story too. Charlie Chaplin this and Fatty Arbuckle that. A bunch of people that nobody even, most people don't even remember. But anyways, the point is, movie actors at the time. The point is that, yes, there were a lot of people there, but where did they really come from? Because I just don't see the average American making the trip. They said people came from all over the world, from all over the country. It was a sight to be seen. I'm sure it was a sight to be seen right before they tore it down. It's like they had to set the narrative, and a lot of people brought this up, that the reason that they had a little bit of everything, a little bit of every culture, a little bit of every food, a little bit of every fashion, was to set the narrative so that people like the next generation and the generation after that could say, oh, remember when that happened 50 years ago and then 100 years ago. And that brings me to one of my personal opinions about this whole thing, is that 100 years seems to be the key. Now it could be moving on, it could be 150 years or even 200 years now because we have the technology. But the point is every 100 years they used to do this, because then you could say, like I was born in the early 80s. So whenever I saw something from the late 1800s, somebody would say, oh, that was about 100 years old. That's 100 years old. Okay, so now we're in 2021. Okay, so it doesn't work anymore because they're older than that now. But there was a period where everything worked out great for the inheritors and the resetters, because they say, oh, that was 100 years old. You see where I'm going with this? It's 100 years. so then they can tear down everything like they're doing now in big cities. You know, in mega cities and suburbia, they're tearing buildings down that are 100 years old. Now, they're keeping a few, but a lot of buildings that are almost 100 years, say 75 years, 50 years, they're tearing them down, okay? Because they have to make way and they have to keep that 100-year, or like I said, because of technology, it might extend further, okay? So I'm just kind of using this video because it's it's kind of a boring video, to be honest. It is. It's not the most exciting video. So I'm just kind of using this video as a backdrop to kind of explain a few theories I have and how it ties in with the World's Fairs. Now obviously we have the incubator baby phenomena at all the World's Fairs.
All right, let's cook. We're back with John Levi, and we're talking about these damn orphan trains, right? These new foundlings. Like, how, instead of rolling up, to the World's Fair and copping, some popcorn, what have you, soda, you could also roll up and cop you a whole fresh infant. And we're going to dig into these orphan trains, and we're going to get on these insane asylums. What were you doing at these insane asylums? So now we're digging on incubator babies. Ain't that what my man said? Let's go.
And here I was just watching something that was shared with me featuring Jerry Seinfeld, and it had to do with the Coney Island infant incubators. And the interviewer asks him about his history, and he says his father was an incubator baby. And the interviewer laughs as if he doesn't believe him. And I'm going to play that for you.
Early 1900s, my dad was an incubator baby.
And very strange. Of course, we've talked about this before, but in short, between 1854 and 1929, the relocating of about 200,000 orphaned, abandoned, abused, or homeless children took place. It's a very sad story, something in between acting as if they're doing a noble thing for these children and at the same time benefiting the needs for labor, for farmers, and even for the railroads. Here they're showing us advertisements placed in papers encouraging the adoption of children. Here we can see a poster. A number of children brought from New York are still without homes.
Wow.
Please call and see them.
Wow.
And often they were treated like farm animals. Their teeth were inspected. They were made to do push-ups and other tests of fitness. This program originally said to be started by this man, Charles Loring Brace.
Damn heathen.
And we're told in the 1850s, there was up to 30,000 homeless children in New York City.
Shit.
And New York City's population at the time was 500,000. And this guy has this great...
So there you go. It's documented. It's documented.
...idea to start shipping them across the country in this early time period.
Repopulation. That's what this shit, all the world fairs was about. If you, the more you dig into the world fairs, you start to see it was a cover up for a whole bunch of shit. And to have all of them all over the face of the plane at the same damn time? The fuck is going on here? Who has that much power to do something like this? Now, what we're saying is that it was that easy for these people to take control, or these heathens. It was that easy. Who has that much power? And so we're watching, or we're digging on one of the many innumerable wonders of the works of Hawaii.
Some cities barely even getting started, barely laying the tracks to these supposed newly constructed cities. We're told these children were often known as street Arabs. Grace believed that street children would have better lives if they left the poverty of New York City and were instead raised by morally upright farm families. And in short, these children were ultimately slaves, not sold for the love and care of a new family, but rather for their ability to labor. And I think this whole story is a lot more twisted than this simple and seemingly well-intended narrative. The children were told, your parents are not your parents. Your life begins when you are chosen.
Do either of you have any sense of how far back your ancestries go in New York? Have you ever?
Yeah, I mean, mine came in the 1920s from Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Mine about the same, early 1900s. My dad was an incubator baby in Coney Island. He was.
You still think it's a game? And so we wonder why something entity like Hollywood can thrive, right? You see that? You see how you can control a vast amount of people and use them to push a narrative? Do you see the necromancy? The alchemy? Who's been MK Ultra? What was going on in these insane asylums?
If you're familiar with John Levi's work, the John Levi YouTube channel, he takes a look at these old buildings. He calls it Antiquitech. That these old buildings are not what they appear to be or what they're labeled as, but
I got him, John. I got him. No. Antiquitech are these antennas and shit that's on top of these buildings, and these things that are used for energy. That's Antiquitech. No, these buildings right here were already here.
that there's something else, and they existed probably before a mudflood, things of that sort.
Correct.
It's all very, very interesting. He does a superb job, and he's really inspired me to kind of go out and look around my own neighborhood, around my own city. I live in San Antonio, and I found a couple places I will be investigating soon. But I came across the Utah State Hospital, and I've seen other people sort of address it. They'll kind of like be talking about the issue, and they'll mention this. And I looked into this a little bit more closely, and I was kind of surprised at what I found, and I wanted to sort of share this with you. Now,
what you got,
if you don't know, the Utah Hospital, built in 1885, construction started.
That is Utah.
It just seemed very strange, right? So, we're looking at this picture here. black and white dirt. You'd think after building a magnificent building, you'd have a cobblestone road or something that would sort of match the architecture or the intent of the designers. And we have this grand entranceway. Now, this might be a little bit later. It looks like they added a median here, some sort of divider in the road. But again, everything is so old. Everything is black and white. Come on, here we go. I mean, look at this thing. This is magnificent. But here we have these other kinds of trees. Looks like a paved sidewalk here. I couldn't tell if this was snow. That was my first impression. Here the mountains, Utah, that was what I was thinking of. But, it looks now like dirt. This is just a dirt roadway.
Mudflood.
Amphitheater, a castle amphitheater. And we'll take a look at this in a minute, but I don't know.
No, let's look at that now.
Things like that on the premises. And look at this. So just some more photos here, same old stuff. Just there's not that many, and it's all the same photos over and over again. Here we might get a better look at. This was clearly an older picture. You can see how little the trees are. Now these are different kinds of trees than the other ones, and these kind of coincide with this. This would be a more recent photograph, if in fact it is a photograph. You can't really tell. I mean, I guess it is. But as I was looking, I came across this smoking gun, you might say. Here's a picture that, to me, has been doctored. This horse and buggy look like they're just
no doubt.
I don't even know the terminology. Airbrushed in, photoshopped in. I don't know. It's just not. That doesn't look right. And of course, over here we have this other one.
That's all. Yeah,
you can see the front left wheel and the front right wheel. Both are in front of the horse, which is hooked into the cart. I mean, these are obviously two separate pictures put onto a third one. So, who goes through the trouble of doctoring a photo in case, obviously, you're hiding something?
The heathen.
And the caption here, the staff. Here we have the staff, 10 or 11 people, I guess, in this gigantic strange photo. The amphitheater here.
Yeah, man,
I guess they need to have their entertainment. As if they don't have enough problems going on. Maybe that's the whole point. We'll put this amphitheater in to make them feel better.
Wow.
Here is a picture with color. I don't know. I don't understand this point. We'll put this amphitheater in to make them get into that. Who puts a castle on the premises or the grounds of an insane asylum? I mean, look at this thing. The amphitheater here. I guess they need to have their entertainment. As if they don't have enough problems going on. Maybe that's the whole point. We'll put this amphitheater in.
Man, get your ass out of here. That shit look ancient.
To make them feel better. Here is a picture with color.
Let's cook.
Number 10, Topeka State Hospital. Where? Topeka, Kansas. Years of operation from 1872 to 1997. It's hard to come to grips with the medical justification for castration, but somehow the practitioners at Topeka State Hospital found the practice suitable.
You want to run that by me again?
It's hard to come to grips with the medical justification for castration, but somehow the...
Castration, huh? You know what? It's funny that they would mention that. Y'all ready to rock with 09? Let's go.
You can read that up on Wikipedia. It's called castrato. And bearing in line with the word castrato, which is actually an Italian word, it would show you like the history of the people who's behind the organized transgendering of children at a young age without their consent, because I just call it mutilation at this point. So when you go to the wiki page, it will give you certain information that's pertinent to this, and I'll just read some of them just to give you just like a brief background of what's really going on. So stereotypically, transgenders were used as gods to like kings and queens way back in history. They were also used as very high level political appointees and servants to a dynasty which could not threaten the ruler. So being the case that the best scenario I could explain this would be, let's say for example that a child is born, right? And this child happens to be a homosexual, okay? Now, if the family does not accept homosexuality, the child grows up in a very harsh environment. So the child wouldn't function well in the family because the family doesn't accept him or her, all right? So let's say, for example, the child has a group of friends or a fraternity or an association that he or she goes to, and they are willing to, treat her or him and accept her homosexuality because they themselves provide that kind of environment. Now, the child will deliberately leave his or her family for the family of the people who accept him or her and his homosexuality. And in that case, the child will now be part of the family and accept the ideals of the family that he's associating with, or who have accepted him. So that is how the whole transgender thing actually works. So being that these people are tools, they're products of the New World Order and the people who run it, they want to use them to social, engineer the population, to precondition them or condition them to accept what has become the New World Order. So being that we learn everything from TV as kids, as grown-ups, as kids, we get to know how people talk, people act, food, behave, and social behavior from TV. It's more like we are evangelized through TV. And this is the case with the whole transgender thing. So you have to, it's more like they are products of a system that, and a system that is used to maybe massage the mental scape or mental scope of each individual to accept what is called the New World Order, which is run by the Vatican. People will say the New World Order is run by Jews, but this is not a fact. The Jews are used as smoke screens for the Vatican. So they run everything. They run both the technological aspect of this world, the economical aspect, the religious aspect, but the Vatican doesn't want you to know that. They want you to think of them strictly as a religious organization.
Male torso, female breast. It's the binding of the two. This is what they worship.
For castration, that somehow the practitioners at Topeka State Hospital found the practice suitable. After Kansas law saw it fit to administer castrations for habitual criminals, idiots, epileptics, imbeciles, and the insane in 1931, Topeka State Hospital went on to perform 54 castrations. If castrations were not enough to frighten you, accounts detail stories of a patient who had been strapped down so long that his skin began to grow over the straps. In addition, patients were victims of rape and other forms of abuse.
Alright, so when we hear rape, we have to think that it was some form of procreation going on inside these buildings, right? Why? Because they had to repopulate, right? You see, we were already here. And they had to match our numbers. And what I'm trying to get at is to get everybody to understand that this was preordained. The Most High told you in Job, I've given the earth over to the wicked for a time. Oh, but how things are about to change.
What makes the abuse of patients at this hospital so disconcerting is that it was later revealed that many of the identities and illnesses of the patients were unknown, with the hospital lacking any proper paperwork for them to be committed. Somehow, the Topeka State Hospital remains open until 1997. Number 9, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Where? Louisville, Kentucky. Years of operation, 1910 to 1961. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium is another case that demonstrates man's willingness to experiment on his fellow man with little regard or concern for his well-being. While not exactly deemed a mental asylum, the Kentucky hospital housed tuberculosis patients during an era of medical uncertainty on the subject. Without a prevailing paradigm for medical treatment of tuberculosis, doctors resorted to barbaric methods.
So y'all see what's going on here and what they was doing in those insane asylums. They had to repopulate. We see now with visuals, right? I hope I've painted a good narrative to follow of that these cities. And matter of fact, across the whole plain. You see they took that shit off stolenhistory.org. It was pretty much a worldwide attack. They're covering up these catastrophes. No matter how long, how hard your ancestor fought these motherfuckers up into the 1800'S. And we look no further than the Indian Wars for that. It was already set in stone. And we talking the curses of Deuteronomy 28. I'm gonna show you why they was repopulating, procreating. They was in the lab, right? They was doing their thing, right? Lack of people, muddy streets. Lack of people, devastation, mud. Lack of people, mud. Lack of people. Mud. Lack of people. There's a lot of shit going on in this one. Lack of people. Lack of people. Lack of people. St. Peter's Basilica. Lack of people. Lack of people. Lack of people. Mud. Lack of people. A whole bunch of mud. Lack of people.
Here in Vicksburg, Mississippi, 1906, the Carroll Hotel. So if you take a look at this building, it's got this, this certain type of architecture. And, you can see here that the stairways going up to possibly the second floor. I don't know, there might actually be another 2 floors below, but it's going up, and you can see all these windows are just trailing off. But you can see, the roads are completely, they're just in horrible shape, but they do have tracks laid down. And, but yeah, the building itself, of course, you got the antenna there. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful building.
and they should be capable of throwing down some brick, but
important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them.
The problem I have, it's this. It's that we can look up historical images and we can find pictures of many American cities that are bombed out and mud-flooded and crumbled and they're in ruins. That we can see, and that's very evident, and that information is not hard to seek out and come across. However, if we are looking for an explanation or a historical narrative that is going to explain to us how these events took place, 200 years ago, then we are at a loss. Nothing will ever explicitly mention the mud flood. And yet, by looking at old photographs, we know it happened.
And how it ties in with the World's Fairs. Now we have the incubator baby phenomena at all the World's Fairs. And they say it was a way to introduce this technology and show it off to people, that it was a very cutting edge technology at the time. But once again, I think that that's just plausible deniability. It's an excuse to bring in more bodies and also to condition people to these almost science fiction-like technologies that they had. So, let's just assume, let's just give, the skeptics the benefit of the doubt and say that everything about the construction of these things is legit. Let's just put aside the totalitarian aspects and how it